Hi guys, I just thought I'd do a quick wee how-to video on how I drew my basic layout for start off before I bought any track. The first thing I did is obviously my layout's 4 foot by 8 foot long, so I marked the board out into 1 foot squares for a start off, and I knew roughly what my track was going to be in the pieces of track I was wanted, but I wanted to draw it out on the track on the board so I could see how big it was and how it was all going to fit, and then I could get rough measurements, like especially for my straights and stuff, like for my sidings, and I could work out how much track I actually needed to buy and what pieces of track I was going to use. So the first thing I did is I got a piece of wood here and drilled a hole in it at one end after I'd drawn a line on it and measured up for your first radius, depending on what radiuses you're going to use, but I'd put them all on there for first radius, second radius, third radius and fourth radius, and then drilled a hole in so that you could fit a pencil, and I shaved the pencil down a little bit so it was reasonably snug, so when you go to draw your track out, you can get some nice clean, or reasonably clean, nice fluid curves, so you can get your pieces of track right for a rough length as you're going around and working it all out. So the next thing I did was, once I'd made my compass on the board, I drew a little hole in one of the intersections of the 1 foot, and then I scribed some lines. On this I used a nail so it didn't show up too much. Scribe some lines for your first radius, your second, your third and your fourth, and then where that line meets roughly, I drew a line straight out through the next corner of that 1 foot square, so that gives you your 45 degrees, which is your largest length of curve for whatever radius you're using. And then I divided that in half again, which gives you your half length pieces, or your same as your points, I think. Same length as your points, and all your shorter radiuses, and then in half that again, because on mine and here I'm going to have a curved point, and the curved points, it's two, it's half, and then half that again, so it's like it's 3/4 of a normal length curve, so you got that little short piece of track you need as well. So I drew that in, so at least then I knew what the lengths were of all the tracks. So then I measured across to each point and wrote it down on the curve, so I knew what the lengths were. So when I come to measure, so when I scribed my first bit of third radius curving, which come right around there, so I knew that was half, or half or 90 degree swing, which is roughly your 2 lengths of your track. Then I could go along and measure it just to make sure it was right, which was 388 millimeters or thereabouts, so I can come along and measure from the start of my straight, mark that off, and measure 388 millimeters in a straight line, not on the curve, in a straight line, because it's pretty hard to get a curved ruler unless you've got a nice flexy one. And that was the easiest way to do it. Mark where my start piece of curved finished, and actually I'll go rob a piece from down the end and I'll show you just how close. Well, actually I can show you down here. So this is like my end and my start from the other one, and if I sit that on there where the sleeper pretty much sits, I'm basically bang on, without even knowing how big the pieces of track were for a start off. Like all I had was the measurement, put it in there, and it was pretty close. So when I come to lay my track, like I knew I was within a few millimeters by the time I got on my track round. So then I could work out too, like I had some unusual measurements. So eventually I'm going to have, I think, 5 lengths of flex track that I've got to cut up. So, like for my main straights, and I wanted to leave a wee bit of room at the ends, so then I've got some odd lengths. So, then I know that when I buy my flex track, I've got roughly how long I've got to cut my piece of flex track, so when I get it all sitting in there, at least then I can measure it and, and go, oh, I'm pretty close, I can cut it at whatever length that is. So that's how I drew it up. That's basically, as you go around, you can work it all out. And just to get your square, your square off to start your curves, I just measured whatever the distance was that straight went over the next, like 1 foot line. And I scribed a mark up here at the right distance for the third or the first or whatever radius, and just scribed it out so I knew where the centre was to put my nail to scribe a mark. And I just did that all the way around the track, Okay, there was a few points, a couple of times where I've had to change radiuses and it wasn't quite on the, it didn't start off on the square. But you can roughly guess where the square was, and I just marked it and scribed it round, and it worked out pretty close. By the time I got around most tracks, I was within 4 or 5 millimetres. So that's how I did mine. Mark your squares out, and then made my compass up, my basic compass, nice and easy. Most people got a piece of wood round that they can drill a few holes in. You don't have to make up a set of dividers or compass or anything. That works just as well. Nice and easy, cheap. And you can draw out your track, and then you can work out any extra bits and pieces or lengths or pieces of flex track that you need to buy and cut. And then you can work out, how many pieces you need by the pieces of lengths. You can work it all out together over your lengths. So I hope that helps anybody out that's doing the same as I am, starting on a new layout and hasn't done it before, or even somebody that has done it before and that's a better way to do it. So that's how I did mine, and hope that helps you. Cheers, see you next time.